Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. We start today's video with the story of one custom home builder who turned a bitter divorce into the most profitable job of his career. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. She asked my dad to move her house so she didn't have to see her ex's new wife. About 20 years ago, my dad was contracted to build a house for a very successful local family. They owned a chain of car dealerships, had plenty of money to spend, and wanted something special. My dad designed and built them a gorgeous 4,000 square foot custom home on 45 acres. The property included a detached garage and a stable since they had horses. It was the kind of job a builder remembers for a lifetime. Challenging, high-end, but incredibly rewarding. Fast forward about 10 years. The husband calls my dad again. Turns out he and his wife had split up, and the land was divided between them. He wanted my dad to build him the exact same house on his portion, only with upgrades, new tech, modern kitchen, better fixtures, the works. My dad laughed when he heard the request, but took the job. The property was split so that the stable and detached garage sat in the middle, shared by both houses. The two homes ended up only about 400 yards apart. At the time, it made sense. Cheaper utilities, easier for the kids to go back and forth. My dad finished the second house, got paid, and figured that was the end of his dealings with them. 6 years later, just after Thanksgiving, my dad got a call from the ex-wife. She wanted a new fireplace mantle installed before Christmas so she could hang her decorations. My dad always did mantles himself. He's a skilled woodworker. Man, it was kind of his signature finishing touch on every home. While he was finishing the installation, she chatted with him about life. The kids were grown now, and she admitted she was tired of being so close to her ex-husband. Her words, "I'm sick of looking out my window and seeing him and that new wife of his prancing around. It's like they're showing off." My dad chuckled and half-jokingly said, "Well, if you don't want to see them anymore, you could always just move the house." They both laughed, and he thought nothing more of it. 2 days later, her new significant other called my dad. His tone was serious. "So I've been thinking about what you said. If we wanted to move the house, would you be willing to supervise the job?" At first, my dad thought it was a prank. Move an entire house? But the man was dead serious. After some discussion, they agreed. Once the new year rolled around, they'd prep a foundation on the far side of her property out of sight from her ex-husband's home. By Easter, the foundation was ready. House moving crews came in with massive jacks, beams, and trucks. The whole neighborhood watched as an entire 4,000 square foot home slowly made its way across the acreage like some kind of suburban parade float. Of course, the move caused damage. Drywall cracked, ceiling seams split, floor tiles popped up. My dad and his team spent weeks patching everything up, making it look like new again. Finally, the woman and her partner were ready to move back in. The ex-husband's smug new wife no longer peeked over the shared stable yard, and peace was restored. Or at least her version of it. When the job was finished, the woman's new partner stood there with a grin. He looked at my dad and asked, "So tell me, how much money have you made off of just one divorce?" My dad just smiled, wiped his hands on his work rag, and said, "Enough to know I wouldn't mind a few more like it." The man laughed, but there was a glint in his eye, like he realized my dad had played the long game without even trying. First, he built their dream house, then he built the ex's upgraded dream house, and finally, years later, he got paid again to move the original. All because one couple couldn't stand to see each other. Even now, whenever that story comes up, my dad just shakes his head. Divorces are tough for families, he'll say, but for builders, sometimes they're the gift that keeps on giving. The image of a 4,000 square foot custom home slowly crawling across 45 acres like a parade float is wild enough, but the context makes it even better. These people had money, pride, and pettiness to spare. Instead of just planting some trees, building a privacy wall, or, moving themselves, they actually paid to move the entire house. And our second story. Actual employee had to yell at customer bothering me for helping while I'm shopping. She's doing some shopping at Champs when I get a tap on my shoulder. Man asked me for help getting a jacket from a higher up rack. Me, "Oh, sorry man, I don't work here." Other customer, "I know, you're just taller than me, so can you help?" "I'm 5'9" on my tiptoes, and this dude's 5'7"? Okay, as I proceed to reach for this jacket like a kid reaching for snacks on the top shelf, I get the jacket, hand it to him, and walk away before he says anything. 2 minutes later, he says, I got the wrong size. An employee overheard this and started asking him nicely what he was doing. He explained, and the look on this employee's face was perplexed. Sir, he told you he doesn't work here. He's 2 inches taller than you. Why would you ever think you should ask a random person to help you shop? Other customers stayed silent while she went and got the hook that can get closed from high up, the stick that was in the back behind a closed door that said employees only. I got rung up after this, and they scanned a coupon they had that I didn't to give me some dollars off as a thank you for my inconvenience. Yeah, I don't work here, but I got asked for help on the top shelf like the Jolly Green Giant at 5'9". And our next story. A customer tried to intimidate me over ice. So I work in the deli section of a supermarket chain. This happened a few weeks ago in the fish section. Now at this store, the fish and deli departments have the same workers and are next to each other. The only difference is that only one person is in the fish department at a time. I was helping out customers when a man comes up to me and I get him some stuff out of the case. We keep the shellfish and some other stuff in a refrigerated shelf in front of it with the shellfish in buckets of ice to keep them fresh. I'm not allowed to give out ice because we don't have any to give, and the stuff in the buckets is for keeping the stuff fresh. So of course he asks me for ice. The exchange goes something like this. Me: sorry sir, but I can't give you ice for reasons explained above. Customer, this time a little ruder: what do you mean? Just give me ice, I see some right there. Point to buckets. Me: I'm sorry, but again, I can't give you ice. Customer: this is ridiculous. I need to go to town that's like an hour south. You need to give it to me or I will get a manager. We go back and forth for a bit until he takes the clams he had picked up and threw them into the bucket. I go and check only to find they're cracked. So at the point, I'm hoping he comes back so I can get him to pay for them. And what do you know? He comes back with a grocery manager who doesn't know how things work in the deli. I explain the situation to him and he understands that I'm just doing what I'm supposed to. I also make sure to mention the broken clams. He just tells the guy if he wants ice that he'll need to buy a bag from the store, which is like 50 cents, and that he'll need to take the broken ones. The guy argues with him for a bit and then finally relents and goes to pay. My manager gets back from break, so I tell him what happened, and we all had a good laugh about it. As I thought I didn't get in trouble since we pretty much get people like that all day, on the way home I told my brother about it, and turns out he went through his line. He, of course, complained about how we were being ridiculous about ice and all that. I wonder how he would have reacted to him had he known he was my brother. I'm glad he had to pay for the cracked clams. Also, good on your manager for making him pay. LOL, if he knew that was your brother, he probably wouldn't have said a word. And our last story. They tried to control my farm from the HOA. When I bought my property, I knew exactly what I wanted: land, freedom, and zero HOA. I've got a farm, I run a sawmill, and I like things the way I like them. My neighbors, however, live in a high-dollar HOA development right next to my property line. You'd think having me as a neighbor wouldn't matter to them. My land isn't part of their HOA, but apparently the sight of tractors, stacked lumber, and animals existing within eyesight makes them itch. For the first year or two, I just ignored them. I'd get letters in the mail from their HOA addressed to neighbor or property owner with complaints like, letter excerpt: your property is in deplorable condition. The presence of wood piles and farm equipment decreases the value of the homes in our community. I tossed them straight in the trash. I wasn't even in their HOA, but the letters kept coming. One afternoon, I was out back checking on my animals when I noticed a couple of people in polo shirts and khakis wandering across my property with clipboards and phones out, snapping pictures. They'd actually trespassed from their side over onto mine just to document my deplorable land. I strode over, waved my arms, and said, me: hey, you're on private property, get off my land. HOA Karen: we're documenting violations for the board. You need to clean this place up. Me: I don't think you heard me. This isn't your jurisdiction. Leave now. Instead of leaving, they started screaming back about bylaws and community standards. One of the men actually stepped toward me, waving his phone in my face while recording. I unholstered my firearm, not pointing it at them, but low ready, and told them to leave immediately or I'd call the sheriff. They bolted, yelling something about calling the cops on me. The cops came, I explained what happened, showed them the property lines, and the deputies had a word with the HOA clowns about trespassing. Nothing more came of it, but that was the day I decided I'd had enough. Running a farm means you deal with manure, lots of it. I'd been hauling and storing manure for composting anyway, but now I decided to put it to excellent use. Within a month, I had over 70 tons of manure piled neatly along the fence line that separates my farm from their McMansion paradise. Perfectly legal, perfectly normal for agricultural use. The smell was, let's say, eye-watering. HOA Karens in their yoga pants and wine tumblers suddenly weren't so eager to stroll their dogs along the fence anymore. Complaints poured in again, but since I'm zoned agricultural, there was nothing they could do. But I didn't stop there. Farm needs maintenance. Tractors, saws, grinders, the sawmill, all of it has to be tested and serviced. So I instituted Maintenance Monday. Every Monday night at exactly 10 p.m., I fire up all the equipment one by one, let it run, check the belts, grease the fittings, and make sure it's in working order. It's not excessive. It's exactly what a responsible farmer does. But the timing? Oh, the timing was exquisite. Just late enough to piss them off, just loud enough to carry over their hedges. They complained to the county. The county guy came out, looked around, and said, "County inspector, he's zoned ag. This is normal. Nothing I can do." You could almost hear the HOA board grinding their teeth from across the property line. Here's the thing about farming. Pests are an issue. Birds, mostly. So when I invested in propane air cannons, loud devices that boom intermittently to scare off pests, I knew they'd serve double duty. They go off randomly at night, echoing across the fields. To me, they're just part of farm life. To the HOA Karens, it's like living next to a war zone. One night, while I was out checking fences, I saw a group of them standing in their cul-de-sac, gesturing angrily toward my property as another cannon went off. They must have thought I couldn't hear them over the wind, but I caught snippets. Karen number 1, "We need to sue him. Nobody can live like this." Ken number 1, "We already tried. The zoning's clear. He's legal." Karen number 2, "He's doing it on purpose. He's ruining our lives." Damn right I was. The letters eventually stopped. The trespassers stopped coming around. They figured out the hard way that I wasn't some pushover they could bully into compliance with their imaginary rules. Now they just glare at me whenever we cross paths. One time, as I was driving past their entrance in my tractor, I gave them a friendly wave. Karen was out front, arms crossed, nostrils flaring like a bull about to charge. I slowed down just enough to shout, "Me, don't forget it's Maintenance Monday tonight." She looked like she was about to pop a blood vessel. These days, the manure pile still sits proudly by the fence, steaming away. The air cannons keep blasting, the equipment keeps running, and my sawmill hums along. And me? I sleep like a baby, knowing the HOA next door finally learned their lesson. Never mess with the farmer who actually knows the rules better than you. This is such a perfect country versus HOA saga. You bought land, you're running a legit farm, and the HOA next door just couldn't handle that they had no power over you. They thought their little clipboard patrols and passive-aggressive letters would scare you, but instead they walked straight into the buzzsaw. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.